All right, my friend. So today's topic is vices and understanding, identifying, discussing, and solving them. I'm going to take you through a tool. It's inside of that template that I showed you guys last week. And so, quick refresher, we're going to go through that workboard just real quick, and then we're going to break out into the individual tool for the Vice section. So for those of you that this is your first time on the call, you'll get a copy of this. I'll drop this actually into chat right now so I don't forget. And meeting group, there we go. This is your Notion board. This is a copy of the 6 V's. So remember, we've got vision, values, victories, vices, voice, and vocation. These are the 6 steps to becoming a high value man. We got to have vision and clarity. There's a module for that. Values, being able to discern and define what your core values are, stacking consistent wins and victories across your 4 domains: faith, fitness, family, finances. Understanding what your vices are, overcoming those, and having a process to bring them to the light. So anything that hides in the darkness, just like mold, it starts to spread. And so the way that we overcome vices, which we'll be talking about today, is to first to identify, discuss them, and then create a solve for them, IDS. Those of you guys that are familiar with EOS, we know that that's the tool that keeps businesses moving forward. So we identify, we discuss, and we solve. It's the same framework for AA. What works so well in sobriety and 12 steps is they first identify that there's a problem, identify what the problem is, then they discuss it in small groups like this, one-on-one with a mentor, with their sponsor, with someone that can help hold them accountable, and they create systematic solves for it. And so that's simply what we're going to be walking through today. The 5th step is voice, being able to just discern the 3 voices that every man has in his head. The critic, that's the negative, pessimistic, non-growth minded way that we think when we get into a fear state. We have the coach, that's the outside voices that we allow into our life that have positive things that we get to look up to. And so we've all got coaches. I get to be one of your coaches. We guys have other coaches in your life. A trusted person, a mentor, a podcast, a book. This is the new way that we're retraining, reframing, and rewiring our brain. So we find coaches that we trust and we pull those voices into our life. And the 3rd voice that we have is the champion. That's that internal intuition, the Holy Spirit, the voice of God that we start to listen to that guides us towards our last step, which is our vocation, your purpose, your calling, the golden thread, the blueprint, the reason why you're here. So those are 6 steps. Each step has a series of modules. You simply click on the modules, follow the prompts that are inside, and it will allow you to understand the process of self-awareness and just to start discerning what your vision looks like, your values, etc. So there are individual modules in here that you guys will go through. Core values, same thing. Click on the box and it will pop up all the tools to help make it easy for you to identify your core values and start living in alignment to those. But today we're talking about vices. So very simply, vices grow in the darkness. And I've got a visual for you that I'm going to be adding to this page. And that is here. Okay. So very simply, vices are, let me pop to this one actually first, are things that we can probably easily identify on the surface. Those are level 1 vices. And we've kind of talked about this before. Level 1 vices are the drinking, the drugs, the porn, social media, anything that we can typically externalize, that we can recognize very quickly. Food is a vice for me if I overeat and overconsume. If I have like one bite of a pastry, that opens up this little demon inside that wants all of the pastries, all of the cookies. And that vice has mutated over the years. It used to be drinking, it used to be chasing ladies, it used to be smoking pot, it used to be vaping or smoking cigarettes. And so the vices mutate over time on that surface level. And so you might see like, oh man, I've overcome the drinking, but now it shows up in overeating or maybe over caffeinating. The external vices just mutate if we don't get below the surface and actually understand what's driving the vice. And so under the surface, just like an iceberg, you guys probably heard that analogy before, what you see on top of the surface is only typically about 20 to 30% of the problem. And so if you see an iceberg, you're driving the Titanic, you see the tip of the iceberg above the water, that's typically only 20 to 30% of the problem. Same thing with your vices. If you've got drinking, drugs, porn, social media, distractions, any other external vice that you may drift towards, on top of the surface, there's still a bigger problem underneath the water that you need to expose the light to. And so remember that vices grow in the darkness. And so all of this is really under the surface. And this is where you need to really create a systematic plan, the IDS process, to help expose these to light so they don't mutate and transform into something else. So we're going to be going through the process on this here, but just to give you guys a little bit of exposure, some vices under the surface: arrogance, shame, self-doubt, sadness, ego, passivity, avoidance, guilt, self-worth, fear. Fear is typically a huge vice that drives guys towards distracting. So rather than feeling the fear, or rather than feeling the sadness or feeling the emotion, we go reach for something that's going to cause distraction. Could be the drinking, could be the phones, could be social media, could be any other thing that we're using to get our mind off of the feeling that we don't want to feel. So this is the vice iceberg. And in order to start really working through these tools, we're going to go back to our template here. And the template is, step one is identifying the vices as they show up. And so you guys all have access to this. So as you get into the week, your stretch is going to be walking through this IDS process with one or two of your vices, finding somebody else inside of the group that can help ask the right questions with you, create a container, and help you work through the solves. And so I'm going to walk you through all this. So I've got an example here of a vice of reckless spending. I don't know how many of you guys have ever had a season of reckless spending where you don't look at budgets, you buy things because they just make you feel good. You don't delay gratification like Mr. Dalton was talking about. So you over leverage yourself. You buy that super sweet car that you think people are going to like. And now you've got an $800 a month car payment, and you're over leveraged and you're not saving the money that you know that you should. And so that's an example of a vice that is probably preventing your success. And so the questions that is going to walk you through understanding where this is coming from. We're going to walk through this together. And then you guys on your own, your stretch for this week is going to be walking through this section, designing and defining your actual IDS process, and then finding another guy in the group to share it with. So the first vice, and this is the example for you, the vice I'm working on is reckless spending, not following a budget, and being impulsive with money. So super simple, super clear. Maybe it's food, maybe it's drinking, maybe it's porn, but you're just simply going to shine light on whatever it is that's holding you back. If you don't face it head on, this is the most important thing about any type of personal development, coaching, therapy, counseling. If you don't articulate what the problem is, it ends up living in this shame, guilt spiral where we protect it. If we protect the thing that's actually causing cancer in our life, we can't expose it to what can actually heal it. And so the first thing is being super simple, very clear with what the problem is. Next one, by engaging in the behavior, what are all the negative things that it's creating in your life? This is where we're pulling our consciousness, our conscious mind, and our thought into starting to build a case against the vice. And here's a little fast forward for you. Every one of us participate in vices because we gain a benefit from it. And typically that benefit is subconscious. There's something we get out of it that we really enjoy. And so we have to pull our conscious mind into this by doing a little bit of self-discovery. And so by engaging in this behavior, what are all the negative things that it creates? I don't have adequate savings, too much debt. I feel ashamed that I can't do things I want to do. I don't create security for my partner, and I worry I'm one bill away from a serious problem. And so these are the problems that are a result of the vice that I'm choosing to participate in. So that's your second step. Third one is to start to identify the feelings that you get from this. And so this is an important thing. We make decisions based on feelings, not just thoughts. So when I engage in this behavior, I feel it feels good to get what I want when I want it and not have to wait. It feels good. It's pleasure seeking. It's enjoyable. I like the feeling of being able to have it right now. I don't like having to be patient or wait or fast from things. And so there's a feeling of pleasure and convenience and comfort immediately when I do the thing. after I engage in the behavior. So again, this is bringing our conscious mind into this reprogramming. But after you do the thing, what shows up? So you can start recognizing the cycles. And the cycles are very cyclical. And so we know that when we participate in comfort or convenience, it just creates a loop of comfort and convenience. We just stay stuck in this vice loop, nonstop comfort and convenience. And so if you can start noticing at some point of the pattern that you're in, we can break the pattern, insert new behaviors. So after I engage in this behavior, I feel guilty because I know I should be doing better. And so if we can recognize what guilt or shame or blame feels like, we can start to insert new actions into the sequence. I am embarrassed, ashamed, disappointed in this behavior because, and then literally list out the reasons. What are the reasons showing up? And again, we're building a case against the old ingrained behavior. What I'm losing from this behavior, list out all the pain. I'm losing out on a future that I say that I want. I'm not able to do things I really want to do, and I'm creating risk for those around me. So I end up being a liability if I'm overspending. Debt is one of those things that you hope not to leave behind as we pass on to the next life. And so one of the things that I know that I want to do, I want to leave the world better than I found it. And so if I've got a bunch of debt, that's not doing that. It's not living in alignment. So I've got a really good case as to why this vice is not actually supportive to my identity. Now, we need to start shifting our mindset to understand, what am I getting from this? Because if we don't identify what we're getting, we can't replace a new behavior with the same feeling. And that's the most important part. Vices don't just disappear. They have to be replaced with victories. And so you need to figure out what you're gaining from this and replace it with something that's going to give you the same feeling. It's not a matter of just white knuckling your way through this. When you think about replacement of the behavior, habits can change to produce more success in our life. But if we don't have a replacement, the habit just mutates. And so we think about people that have quit drinking, quit doing drugs, and then they just pick up overeating. They didn't replace the habit or behavior with a healthy emotional um, uh, replacement that's going to give them the same feeling. And they need to do that or they haven't done that because they don't typically identify the feeling they're getting from it. So I gain immediate satisfaction. So that lets me know that the next behavior I replace it with, I need to gain some type of immediate satisfaction from it. I need to gamify something. I need to create a way that I can feel like I'm stacking a win that makes me feel good about the process of changing the vice. Then we're really pulling back the root on this, understanding where we learned the behavior. I learned this behavior from my dad. He never planned or prepared for anything for the future, and he taught me just to live in the moment. He'd get money and he'd spend it right away. And it was like this constant cycle of like, all right, what do we have? And then this like frantic rush to go and create more money. And so it was always paying things late, not being on time. It was this constant cycle of like, once we got a little bit of money, then we'd spend it all on whatever. And then it would just be this like rush to go and try and find or create some more money. But it created this state of desperation rather than actual planning. Once you know where you learn the behavior, the great thing about this is anything you've learned, you can unlearn and relearn something new. And then the last one is your impact statement. This is the feeling, the motivation, your mantra around this. But I'm finally ready to be done with the behavior because I'm finally ready to be done because because my future wife and kids deserve a great life and future. I'm done being selfish and ready to start practicing discipline in this area. And so you create a statement that is impactful to you and allows you to shift your vision towards a positive direction. So that's the identify piece first. So handful of questions help you identify what the vice is under the surface, on top of the surface, but just start exposing some awareness to the problem so you can step into step 2, which is the discussion. So 3 steps in this: IDS, identify is first, discuss is second, and solve is third. So you're going to discuss this vice with somebody, and that can be someone inside of the group. I'd encourage you to find somebody inside of the group. It can be a coach in your life. It can be a mentor. It can be a pastor, somebody you care about. And the best way to do this is literally just grab this section and read it to them and literally read, hey, this is the device I'm working on. This is what I'm working with. This is how I feel. This is the reason why I learned it, but this is what shows up. And I want to do something different. And here's my impact statement. And so you can read them this. You have a literal script to walk through that discussion piece with. Oh, there we go. Clicking around, wrong spots. And there we go. Then with the discussion point, you and your partner are going to come up with a solution for it. And so you're going to share it with somebody. The solution we discussed as a replacement is establishing a monthly budget, setting margins, 10, 10, 10, and 70. 10% tithe to charitable giving, 10% saving, 10% investment, and living on no more than 70% of income. And so that's a simple template that I can follow that helps me set a budget and actually create some long-term planning. The accountability we have in place looks like a monthly check-in and permission for Josh to review my financials at any time. And so there's a very simple formula, but the goal of this is just simply to sit down with somebody else, expose the problem to the light, and then discuss with them a potential solution. So the solution on this, same thing. It's going to walk you through some questions. The vice I'm eliminating is reckless spending. The old behavior was causing. You're going to reaffirm what the problem is. I need to end, edit, or exit because, and list out all the areas that are potentially causing you problems. These are your triggers around it. I'm replacing the new behavior with. You're going to list out all the potential solutions. So if plan A doesn't work, plan B can show up, and you've got different options to apply pressure to the vice. And I've got accountability in place by, and you're going to list out all the ways that you're reinforcing accountability. So for any of you that have ever been to a AA meeting or understand the formula, there's 12 steps in it. Step one is identifying that you've got a problem. You got to admit you have a problem first. So that's the identification piece. Right in the middle, I think it's the fourth step, is making a fearless and moral inventory of all the wrongdoings you've done. So this is like your discussion piece. And I don't know which step it is, 7 or 8 in there. You share it with somebody else. This is the entire model for therapy, counseling, mentoring, a successful AA program. This program is we bring it to the light. We bring all this stuff that's hiding under the surface, that we bring that iceberg and we shine light on it. If we don't shine light on it, it ends up mutating and transforming and is taking up other domains of life. And so the whole purpose of this exercise is to give you some prompts and some questions so you can start working through the identification process first, the discussion, and then the solve. Does that sound pretty simple for y'all? Make sense? Cool. All right, so this is going to be a post later today, but a quick recap of everything. As we face challenges in life, and this can be anything that can be a challenge, we have 2 paths. We have path number 1, which is going back to the past, choosing the comfort, convenience, and devices. What this ultimately does for us, big picture, long term, is it lowers our character, makes us feel sad. And we know that guilt and shame and frustration loop. When we make bad decisions that are easy, comfortable, convenient, and we feed devices, I reach for the drink, the drug, the food when I'm feeling stressed out. Stress is a challenge. Then what I'm doing is I'm just repeating that vice circle, and my character starts to drop. So you think about your life like a video game. If you guys have ever played a video game, and you know that you have to level up your character for the new challenges in the game. Level 1 character versus level 10 character. You've had to overcome a lot of systematic challenges. If you face challenges by deploying and defaulting to your vices, your character never levels up and you stay at the same level throughout life. It means like you're playing level 1 Mario over and over and over and over and over and over again. And so you have to face your vices and apply new principles. And so when you face that challenge, instead of going to vices, you stack victories. Victories are small, systematic wins that build 2 things: your confidence that says, hey, I can do this because I proved it to myself that I can do it, and my competence. I know I can do this because I have the skill set and the experience of doing it over and over again. So you think about basketball, and I think about James, Mr. Dalton's son, who is a gangster at sports. All his kids are gangsters at sports. James is very good at shooting baskets because he's done it over and over and over again. He's got high competence. He's got high confidence. And so he's been able to consistently stack victories. Any domain of your life, you approach the challenge by deciding that I'm going to choose a victory rather than a vice, and your character levels up. So your level 1 skill starts to reach that level 2 level, and you can approach the next boss. Anything you want in life is all about this loop here on the right. Confidence, competence, and stacking consistent victories so that you level up and you're a happy little stick figure. Quick little recap of your vice iceberg. Remember, your surface vices, those are going to be the ones that are externalized, that typically other people around you will point out. Okay, so you got a drinking problem, you got a drug problem, smoking, vaping, social media, chasing ladies, or online porn, whatever that is. These are the surface ones that are pretty easy to identify. Like, you could probably run real quickly, do a quick little audit. All right, what are my vices? Yep. Oh, that's one, that's one, that's one. Typically, you know your vice because there's a feeling of guilt or shame immediately after doing the thing. That's the Holy Spirit whispering to you that what you did, you shouldn't do again. And so you can typically identify those. So that'll be your first step in your homework, is identifying all of the level 1 vices that show up in your life and being able to systematically ask yourself the questions that are in your worksheet. Then below the surface, these are the things that we really need to heal and solve. This is where having a trusted person in your life, a coach, a counselor, therapist, a father figure that you know that can actually walk you through this process, but start to identify what's actually living underneath the surface so you can shine the light on it. These are a few prompts to start gaining some insight, but mostly they're going to come from 2 feelings. One, sadness about something that you are sad about, loss of love, loss of relationship, loss of life, or fear, a fear that you're afraid of. And so the 2 primary drivers, not the only ones, but the 2 primary drivers are sadness and fear. When sadness and fear show up for men, typically we don't want to feel the feeling, so we push it away, put it in a little box, and then go choose a vice that will distract us from the feeling. And so once you can start identifying the sadness and fear, you can bring it through that discussion and solve model, discussing it with somebody that you trust, inserting some scripture into it, reminding yourself who you really are in the image of God, and then creating systematic wins to start to build your confidence and your competence. And then the last step to this, your simple IDS, realize that anything non-identified that lives in the darkness ends up growing into a bigger problem. And so your 3-step formula for this is really simple. First, identify it. Identify what the problem is. Speak very clearly, openly, what the issue, what the vice, what the problem is. Discuss it with somebody. Hey, dad. Hey, brother. Hey, coach. Hey, friend. This is what I'm dealing with. Discuss it and share a little bit of how you hope to solve it. Let them offer some insight, create some accountability, and then systematically solve it. End, edit, exit, remove it from the environment. I don't keep sweets in my house. I don't keep a whole lot of carbs in my house, specifically because I know that that's a trigger for me. So if I've had a long day of coaching, I'm feeling tired and worn out, I don't even want to have the temptation around. So if you've got other temptations, drinking, drugs, porn, do something to remove it from your environment so you don't have to deal with it. And then insert some accountability in your life where you can reach out to a friend, a mentor, somebody that you trust. Does it make sense, guys? Cool. So your homework is to download your Notion board, create your Notion account if you haven't done that already, walk through the steps leading up, or jump directly to the Vice section. And super simple on this. What you're going to do is you click on this for the instructions, and then let's get back, buddy. Click on the card here, and you're literally just going to copy it. So if you click on the little, once you download this to your board, you'll be able to copy it over, and then you just copy and paste each of these, add another little template for it so that you have a Vice, Ness, stop. Buddy, stack it down. It's almost his walk time. He's very excited. He missed me for being gone for 5 days. Identify for each vice you're working through. And so don't lump all your vices into one spot. Make sure you're taking time for each individual vice. So reckless spending, drinking, drugs, whatever it is, Do this for each vice that you're working on. That way you can start seeing all of them systematically being solved, creating a little bit of win and a little bit of gamifying of your personal development process. Cool.